Hello, everyone, and welcome to our interview with Naveena and Giulia from Onfido. Naveena, would you like to start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name is Naveena. I'm the head of risk and compliance at Onfido. Been at Onfido for about 5 years. Before that, in banking, and before that, various different consulting, advisory type work. With regards to risk and compliance, I've been in the industry for about 20 plus years when it comes to risk and compliance. But before that, I was in sales, and before getting into sort of hardware and repairing computers, carrying around screwdrivers to sort of repair computers across different functions. But yeah, that's my brief introduction.
Thank you. And Giulia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. My name is Giulia, and I am a product manager at Onfido. I've been working for Onfido for the past 7 years. I was originally leading the product support team, and then I transitioned 5 years ago into the PM role. And I am one of the product managers in the biometrics team. But before Onfido, I was actually working as a hardware designer. I have a technical background in electrical engineering. So Onfido is basically where I started working in the identity space.
Great. Thank you so much. So I'll start with you, Giulia. As you work in biometrics, how do you think biometrics are addressing bias in the identity space, and what needs to be done in relation to the product design in identity systems to reduce that bias?
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. Mitigating bias is really important to ensure that identity verification systems are as fair as possible. And biometrics definitely offer valuable tools to achieve this goal. So something that is really important is to train biometric algorithms using a diverse data set that includes a sample from different ethnicities, age, and genders, because it's this diversity that ensures that these algorithms can actually perform consistently well across different demographic groups. And in addition to diverse data sets, ongoing monitoring is really important as well, because it helps to quickly identify and address any bias-related issues, reducing the chances of incorrectly accepting or rejecting someone because of their demographic characteristics. I also think, though, that transparency is key, because biometrics providers should be forthright about the potential biases and limitations of their systems, and they should also hold themselves accountable for addressing and rectifying any of those bias problems. And something which we deeply care at Onfido about is also the diversity of the teams. That also plays a key role because diverse teams are better equipped to spot and address bias. But I also think that we shouldn't underestimate the importance of accessibility. So designing products, systems, processes with accessibility in mind. Because if a website or a product or a service is not accessible, it can discriminate against disadvantaged people, and that is also a form of bias. And yeah, I'd say, last but not least, it's regulations. They do play a key role because they can create standards and guidelines that can promote fairness, and that then biometric systems have to adhere to. So, biometrics is part of all of this. Biometrics can definitely help mitigate bias, but as you can tell, at least in my opinion, they're just one part of a larger solution that involves technology, ethics, regulation, community engagement, and much more.
Yeah, I do agree. I think you can get really far with biometrics and other technologies, but I really emphasize the point that you made about having diverse teams, because that's ultimately the best way to kind of make sure that everyone is included and that the systems are accessible to everyone. And that's actually another mission of Women in Identity, is identity systems built for everyone by everyone. And that's exactly why. So thank you for that. Naveena, I have another question for you. So what risks do you think that need to be addressed in relation to achieving that identity inclusion?
I think a lot of it Giulia had covered around how we do things, or in terms of having diverse teams and looking at it from a holistic point of view and regulations. So I think risk is one angle of it. And I'll come on to risk in a minute, but I think also one of the things that we do, and we've been doing for a few years now, is to be very conscious about the governance that we put in place, because it's going to be, it's not a one-time thing, it's going to be continuous. So the models that we train, for example, for machine learning, you're not going to have one and then it stops there, right? It's going to be new products, new features, new functionalities. And so whether it's a data set or whether it's the code of the machine learning piece, that sort of needs to be the transparency, considering bias, talking about things like statistical analysis. A lot of work is involved around continuously maintaining that actually we have, as much as removing bias as much as possible, because you can think about this conscious bias and also non-conscious bias, right? Sometimes it's just there and you're not aware of it. So having that diverse sort of people and team and resources and continuous governance around some of these things can really help, making sure that at all times you're doing your best that you can to build a product and a service that can achieve what we need for it to be, to achieve above and beyond fraud. Now, the risk, going back to risk, is around the first is, I'd say, fraud element, right? We always need to think about providing a service, what are the fraud levels when you're releasing a new product, what would that look like, and having enough testing and training around some of this, releasing a product. So that would be, I think, the first element of risk. The second would be, for me, going back to what I said earlier around unconscious bias, because I think that's the one where if you do not know what you do not know, and you do not have enough governance in place, then you'd be thinking that, okay, this is how we've always done it, and therefore this is how we are going to do it. So the governance function, I think, is, and probably biased because I'm within that governance function, to say is really key, because then you have certain tests that you can do, and they differ based on different product and service that you offer, to ensure that you then remove that biasness, either in the code, either in someone who's coding it, either in the data sets that you have now selected to run the tests on, right, and produce the results. So I think those are some of the key things. Another thing that I think Giulia touched on, which will be relevant, is also certifications or regulatory requirements, which we do quite a lot, especially with the changing regulatory requirements around getting certifications that make us more accessible. We now build products that are more accessible for people, and we've got certifications that I think, Giulia, we're really involved in, the iBeta, for example, where we are now making it more accessible to people rather than your bog standard font or colors, or it's a smaller, it might seem small, but actually it means a lot to a different group of people who require that access to that service. I'm not sure if that answered the question, so I kind of went different places, but really I think if I were to summarize it, it's going to be looking at fraud, because then if you just not providing a service and actually don't catch fraud and don't catch the bad guys or girls doing it. The second thing is making sure that the service has as least bias as possible by catching ourselves and continuing monitoring ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much for that answer. I think that holds a lot of insightful information. And so I think you kind of already answered that question in terms of what could be done to address that identity inclusion. Giulia, do you have anything to add on what can be done in general in the identity space to achieve identity inclusion?
Yeah, a few things come to mind. So one thing would be to break down the barriers around technology and culture that can contribute to identity exclusion. And I think you were mentioning this before. What I mean is that some identity verification methods rely on tech or devices that either are not accessible or familiar to everyone. And so this leaves out people who can't afford or can't use or know how to use these devices. And also, if identity processes don't consider our different cultures and languages, they can actually leave out people that do not conform to the mainstream norms. And so again, I think it's really important to prioritize inclusive verification methods that are designed with fairness in mind, that, as Naveena also was saying, that address bias issues, that address accessibility issues, because you want a process that can work for anyone, no matter what their background, their ability, the type of device, the ethnicity, gender, age, or access to tech that they may have. So I think this is really important. I think another thing is around privacy. I mean, there's growing concerns around privacy. People are wary of identity verification methods that demand extensive personal information. And so I think it's really important to create systems and processes that actually prioritize transparency. I think user transparency is key, and also that safeguard privacy. And yeah, again, I mean, going back to regulations, but they're really, really important, because sometimes there are very strict rules, for example, about the type of identity document that is needed, and that can create a barrier. So engaging and working very closely with regulators is key. Challenge existing norms and really push for more inclusive and flexible approaches. So yeah, these are some of the things that come to mind. But yeah, I think if we can basically break down these barriers around technology, privacy, and also working very closely with regulators, I think all of this can definitely help with making identity verification more inclusive.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think the privacy point is very prominent right now. We even see it in the use of Twitter with changing their policies and now using an excessive amount of biometric data. A lot of people have jumped off Twitter, boycotted Twitter completely just because of that. So I think education is really important as well. A lot of people that, you know, are not in the identity space, that don't know all the jargon around it, or even they don't even know anything about biometrics or cybersecurity. I think there should be a lot more education to increase that awareness, so that, you know, everyday people that don't really know much about digital identity know how to protect their own data as well. And I have one more question for the both of you. The identity space, or the digital identity space, or the tech space, oftentimes it can be quite a male-dominated industry. Do you have any advice for women that are trying to get into the identity space or into any male-dominated industry? What would be a piece of advice that you give them?
With you know, all of tech, don't really look at it from a point of view of, oh, that's male dominated, or that's tech, or I need a degree in engineering, you know, or any of that stuff. I think we've got at Onfido, for example, lots of people from different backgrounds, and you know, you sort of you kind of pick your niche and you look at what interests you, and you can learn quite a lot along the way. We do a lot at Onfido as well. We kind of certainly more before COVID, where we had school kids coming to our offices, and we do have it's like a one-day thing where they hear from different roles, so from marketing, from, you know, from tech, from sales, from the people team, of all the different things that they do as part of their job in the identity space. So I think it's not just, oh, you need a degree in, I don't know, computer science to be able to do this. There are lots of different roles, but at the same time, I think even now within STEM, even if you don't have that particular degree, there are lots of courses that's available, and then you learn on the job and you find what you really like doing, and that can get you there. So I think the biggest thing is, don't let that stop you from not applying or not looking into it. As long as you're interested in it, there are plenty of roles that can give you a bit of an insight of what it's like. Yeah, I think I think I'll start with that.
Great, thank you. And what about you, Giulia?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely echo what Naveena said. Like at Onfido, I think we have the blessing of having a very diverse team. I personally, in the product management team, I have the luxury of working with really so many amazing women. But it's not just about gender. I mean, we have a diverse team on many different levels, and the opportunity to learn from all of them. So I think this is great, and we as a company definitely try to promote diversity and inclusion as much as possible. And I think, hopefully more and more companies will keep doing that, and that will definitely help. Younger girls joining these companies and the tech world. But I also share what Naveena was saying, like even if you don't have a tech background, it doesn't mean that you actually can't join the identity world. There are so many different roles that people could have. And it's really about finding, I think, the right company that allows you to explore a bit what the best role for you could be, and then just succeed in that role. But yes, at Onfido, we did, as Naveena said, have several initiatives where we were also trying to promote, for example, women, girls joining tech. So that's, I think, also something really important.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you both for this interview. It was really great. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And of course, we appreciate Onfido's support at Women in Identity a lot. And we enjoy working together with you. So thank you so much for your time. And I hope you have an amazing day.